I guess we can start, Jennifer, with some breaking news here. We are now learning that Carlos Leitao, the former provincial finance minister, of course, in Philip Couillard's administration, has confirmed he will run as a Liberal Party member candidate here in Quebec. We know what riding this is?
Yes, it's Montreal Fontaine, which is a northern Laval riding, so on the Rivière des Mille. And that's really exciting news because you can see that Mark Carney is attracting some very impressive people to what will be a tariff battle. You know, we're having an economic war with the U.S., and so he's attracting some heavyweights, and he's not just attracting this guy as an advisor; he's attracting him as a candidate, you know, for the Liberal Party of Canada in the upcoming election. So that's very interesting news, and I know certain people that I know will be very happy about that because they were eagerly awaiting this news to go and volunteer for him if this ever came to fruition. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, from over the years, having met Carlos Leitao when they were doing provincial budgets, he's first of all, he's incredibly approachable. He's actually a really, really nice guy. Even we talked after, of course, the Liberal government fell. And I think, Jennifer, as you mentioned this, I think to myself, you know, this does take a little wind out of the sails of the Conservatives in terms of pointing to, you know, Mark Carney, finance. Here's a guy who ran a province and ended up with what? A surplus, if that word can actually be, you know, handed when they gave it over to the CAC. So he's got some pretty good credentials here.
Well, that's it. I mean, the problem that Leitao had wasn't the surplus. It was the fact that Couillard ran probably the worst campaign I've ever seen in my life in 2018. And then, as you mentioned, we had a surplus, and it's since been it's no longer there. We'll just say it's gone.
Long gone. Yeah, long gone. All right, let's move on. Talk about what's going on as far as SACLIC is concerned. So now Francois Bonnardel, his name keeps getting mentioned again, yet the Premier says, no, there's no problem there. He still has my confidence. Opposition members are calling for his head, for Geneviève Guilbeault's head. What do you think comes of this?
Well, it's interesting because remember a couple of weeks ago when Éric Kerr resigned, so François Legault also was confident in Éric Kerr until the moment that he wasn't, until he became a distraction overnight, and then he resigned. Francois Legault, it goes back to what I say all the time to you here, is that Francois Legault is loyal almost to a fault. And I'm sure that those two ministers, Guilbeault and Bonnardel, both the former and the current transport minister, both breathed a sigh of relief when the inquiry into SACLIC was announced. So they're like, oh, okay, Kerr fell on the sword. We don't have to. Well, unfortunately, Le Devoir thought differently of that. Now, Bonnardel is not a rookie. Yeah, he was elected first in 2007 with the ADQ. He knows about this stuff, as does François Legault. So, he apparently knew about the SACLIC fiasco, or what has become the fiasco, which was the delays and whatever in 2021. Now, he was sufficiently angry, as he should have been, and requested weekly updates and reports on what was going on. But it doesn't matter. That's not the way that the doctrine of ministerial accountability and responsibility works. The minister has to be responsible. And in François Legault's version of the Westminster model, it seems to go by the wayside. But I wouldn't be surprised if Monsieur Bernardel found himself in a distraction overnight, and we saw his resignation probably by the end of the week. I don't think François Legault can deal with much more bad news.
Does someone else walk the plank here? Geneviève Guilbeault next?
So I think that would take a lot, but you never know. But I'm not sure about her.
Okay. From that, we move on to we're going to talk about Camille Yaoud, I guess, right? Is that the idea?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I went off the rails on this earlier in the week because I'm kind of beside myself here. And I heard Alan D'Souza talking about this today as well. It's all over it. A couple of stories in the Gazette on this today. We talked about this before, Jennifer. I mean, I think this is just beyond any other description. So incredibly disingenuous of the mayor to go ahead with this, as it says in the headline here. Basically, flip the bird to Montrealers who don't want this done. And then, did you happen to hear Alex Norris on this or read what he said?
I read what he said in the Gazette, and I was just looking at it, and I wanted to bring this up here. I'll see if I can grab the quote here. And it's sort of illegible. It's hard to believe that Alex was a former journalist. But anyway, the scenario we chose allows us to respond positively to all 16 of the recommendations than if we would have permitted, I don't understand that, have permitted car traffic to continue on Camille Hood. And then blah, 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 he goes on. And then he goes, I'm convinced that in 10 years we will look back and say, what took us so long to resolve this problem? Okay, Aaron, What problem?
Exactly.
What problem? And, I remember back in 2018 when this became an issue, CJAD wanted to host a debate with me and anybody from Projet Montreal over this. And it took them a week to come up with somebody. Then they sent poor Craig Sauvé, and we did an on-air debate. And he could never identify, and they still can't identify what the problem is that they're trying to solve with this. It's an ideological driven move. As we talked about last week, they're prepared to say untruths. Like, we're looking at some of the spin that's already starting to come of this, that, it's still going to be accessible to cars. You can get in on Remembrance. Remembrance parking lot is tiny, and they're getting rid of the parking lot at Smith House, so they're shrinking it down. So I don't know what is going on with that. I would like to know, and I'm going to find out because I'm a rights holder at Mount Royal Cemetery, what is going on with their lawsuit, because they have a right of way.
Yeah.
And they gave land to the city. I mean, they can speak about this themselves, but there are a lot of people that are really angry. And maybe you'll take heart in this, Aaron, I think, because when this was going on Monday night at City Council, of course, people that I worked with in 2018 to force the biggest public consultation in Montreal history and drive the petition of 45,000 people, they're paying attention to this too, of course. And what we've noticed, which contrary to 2018, the Francophone media is starting to talk about this, and that can only be helpful for our cause because, there were a lot of people that signed, a lot of Francophones that signed, but the media wasn't particularly helpful, unlike the Anglophone media back in 2018, you and Terry DeMonte and a whole bunch of you. So, perhaps all is not lost. But again, if Projet Montreal gets back in, they elected a new leader, and he's already said that he would be, he's had the executive committee, so we signed off on this. He's already said that he will go ahead with the closure of Kamala Yehud, with the contract that they signed, $13 million, which they rammed through the other day. So many irregularities in the entire thing, Linda Goulart wrote a great piece on it just about how the documentation was received, and then you've got more Projet Montreal spin. So, they have a lot of solutions to problems that don't exist.
By the way, I remember in Linda's column, it also talked about the fact that there had been one bidder on this open contract, which in and of itself is concerning. I want to get back to just what you said, and then I'll get off this, but Alex Norris, I believe, is quoted in that. At least I heard him on with Elias as well last week. He actually said, and I don't know what he meant by this, that by closing the road to cars, of course, it'll make it easier for people in wheelchairs to get up there.
Well, I can assure you, and full transparency, I have clients, disabled clients, and we wrote a couple of press releases this week saying quite the opposite about that. And the disabled lobbies now no one knew who to talk to. That's all.
Anyway, we'll see how this plays. Again, this will become, I'm not sure that, had this gone ahead, it would have even been a big election issue, but now it will in fact be, because we've already had Ensemble Montreal, as you said, and Soroya come out and say that, no, this is not what they're going to do if they win. So at least it's going to get more attention. And to your point about the French media finally paying attention, that's only good news. All right.
It's not just oh, sorry.
No, go
ahead. One last point. For sure, Ensemble Montreal has been great and strong on this, and I'm really pleased to see what they're doing. But also at City Hall, there's, independent councillors from some of the demerged cities, that are now part of Montreal, so like LaSalle councillor and other councillors. So there's a lot of voices that can be heard, and the people need to remember that they have to go out and vote in November. It can be an issue. All that we want to make it an issue, but if people stay home, tant pis.
Yeah. Well, if what happened in Terrebonne is an indication, what was the turnout there? 36% for voting in Terrebonne?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, let's hope it gets better than that and people get worked up enough to actually get out there and vote and not just call and complain here. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you, Aaron.
Talk to you
Have a
next
great
week.
day.
You too.